I just wanted to start by asking you, you've been at Carolina for a long time, nearly 30 years. Why do you love UNC?
No, you said the nearly 30 years thing. Now I feel old. Yeah, it's been 27, so that is nearly 30. I came in 1998. It's the students. When I got here, I was coming from Caltech, smaller place. I went in, taught my first intro astronomy class, and the students were so good. I had taught at other universities, and I said, well, I'm just going to teach this a little better. And I felt like I had to up my game to just do right by the students. And then I started to get grad students too. And it's just been a career, in the classroom where I just really appreciated the students. When I became chair of physics and went into more administrative roles, I kind of tried to stay close to the students. And one of my regrets after that is more and more, as you start to be things like associate dean and provost, you get more separation. Now, I love the faculty too, of course, and I love working here with all the folks, but I'm starting to feel that distance from the students, and I need to get back there.
All right, so you were really busy during your time as provost. Can you talk about some of the things you feel you accomplished? Did you achieve your goals?
I did, actually, and I'll say these are not just my goals. These were some institutional goals that I had worked on with prior leadership. And I came in with a list, literally a list of things that I said, if I can get these done, I will feel like we've done something for Carolina. The biggest one was we had met, I felt like forever, around a school of data science. And it had been talked about for at least 12 years, if not more. Very frustrated set of people who said, our students want this. Obviously, it's in the future something the state is going to need to develop. How do we make this happen? And it just didn't happen and didn't happen. So within weeks of coming in, actually the first day I asked legal, how do you make a school? What's the process? Show me the policies and who has the authority. The weird thing is they came back and said there's all kind of stuff around how you shut them down. There's no word in any policy about making a new one. And I said, so you're telling me arguably the provost has the authority to make a school? They said, yes. And I said, so I've just done it. That day I said, we're making the school. And then we put together a team and hired an associate dean. And Kevin Guskowitz was chancellor, and he was very supportive. And now the first majors will be graduating. They have over 200 majors. It's 3 years. So, and the legislature was gracious enough to fund with recurring money the whole school. I mean, I feel like we got lucky. Actually, we even got lucky on space. During the pandemic, IT, which is mostly in Manning Hall, at ITS Manning, there's another Manning Hall, so they had moved to remote work. And Mike Barker, the head of it, said, I don't think I need to bring him back. So there was even a building. A lot of times you need a new school, you don't have a space. I said, well, we're going to put the new school in the space where the data center is. That makes sense for data science. So a lot of it was, luck and preparation, and the campus had thought about it a long time. Somebody needed to pull the trigger. So that was number one. Now, also, when I got in, I had understood the way we support our faculty was kind of piecemeal. So we made that Office of Faculty Affairs, and that has made a huge difference in the way we can support our faculty. Our budget model, Nate had been working on it when I came, but I really wanted deans who do new programs and get new students to get some of them revenue, because we're enrollment and tuition funded, and now we have that. So those were three big things on my list. And then the last one was I wanted to see that program for public discourse that I had helped establish built out with some aspirations to have faculty and maybe a major, and now we see that starting to develop in the School of Civic Life and Leadership. So it was a lot, and there's some more little things in there. But if you asked me what on the list had I not done, I was making a new list. It's like I'll have to think of new things, and then things started to get a little hard here, and I thought, why don't I give somebody else a chance and get back to my lab? So,
can you talk about what got hard?
A lot of stuff, right? I mean, look around. We have grants being pulled with very little process. We have, I think, lots and lots of negative beliefs about the university. And, I want to articulate what's positive about our university, but it's just getting to be a lot of extra work to manage what looks like a kind of I don't want to call it a battle, but there's definitely, the university is under some threats that we haven't seen before, and I'm not sure I'm the best person to manage that and answer those questions.
So over the past week, there's been a lot of talk in the media, right, about you're stepping down and potentially some conflict within the School of Civic Life and Leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I think the assembly called it messy.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Are those media articles and the rhetoric out there true?
Well, I look at the media articles. Not everything in the media articles represents how I see it. I'll just say new things are hard. There was a lot of stuff that happened in the new School of Data Science that we had to get through. This one has some special features that make it harder. There were faculty working on this project who had expectations about what the school was going to be. Of course, we hired a dean from the outside. I have this rule. It's kind of a subsidiarity rule. I let the deans run their business, and he's been doing that. But the vision he's been setting was maybe not the same one that some of these faculty had. And so that kind of tension is necessarily going to mean that you've got to work through some things. So my hope is for the students. The school is for the students. My hope is for the students. They'll get worked through, and then we'll see courses and programs that really matter for our students. The important thing in the end is that it serve the student population in ways that the students believe in, that they trust, and that they want to take the courses for the offerings that are there. And so I think when we measure it, we shouldn't be measuring it by, is it contentious, is it causing? That's up here. Where it meets, the criteria that I would set is how is it satisfying the need to prepare students for careers and to address political polarization through better dialogue. So I think I'd like to focus on that future and ask, how does it do that? And then we'll see. And I think we'll roll the tape later and ask the same question. In 3 years, the School of Data Science has got 200 majors, and the first ones are graduating. So let's give this a chance to have similar impact on the campus.
So let me ask, is the vision that Dean Atkins has right now aligned with your vision for the program?
No dean's vision is 100% aligned with the provost's ideas about something. It is not fully aligned with some of the things we were doing in the program for public discourse when I established it. It's doing some things that are beyond that, but I don't think it's lost that. I'm looking at this course, Skill 190, and I went and spoke to that course, and that's a course about how you talk about very difficult things between people who may disagree. So I think it is doing, that part is definitely in line with the mission.
So is some of that potential conflict perhaps a reason that you chose to step down?
There are lots of reasons why I stepped down. Mostly they have to do with what I want to do next. What I've been talking about with my deans, I have a company that I've been trying to manage. We had a grant to develop something called a hyperspectral imager. I have some science projects. I still have a grad student and a postdoc. And also I'm not teaching. And so I'm not having fun anymore. And when you're not enjoying something, it's time to go back to the things that you love. So I never wanted to stay more than about 4 years. And since I've accomplished the things I want and I've got these opportunities, I thought, let me go and have fun and let someone else address some of these challenges that are coming.
So not to just re-ask the question, though, is that lack of alignment one of the many reasons?
It's a factor in why I'm not having fun. Yeah. Yeah, it became a chore to deal with, and maybe some new ideas will emerge if a new person comes to deal with it.
So let's talk a little bit about, the future, right?
Yeah.
What's next for you? You talked a little bit about this, but tell me more.
Yeah, I'll try to give you the short answer because you'll get me going on stuff I really am passionate about. In about 2012 to 2014, I started developing some technologies that I think are going to make a big difference both in astronomy and in remote sensing, which is a field where you put things on drones that fly over the ground and you have a spectrum of every spot on the ground. And you can use that to measure agriculture. You can use it in defense applications. You can measure algae blooms in the ocean with little bitty drones. And we've just developed a prototype. I've been working from 7 to 9, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, so before business hours, in my lab to get this thing with some colleagues up to a kind of prototype. Well, we have a company that we're going to commercialize that, and that's going to be more than I can do as provost, and I've put it off long enough. So one exciting thing is it's called Syzygy Optics LLC. I'm going to go and start functioning as a principal of that company and move this technology to market. So an innovation made at Carolina will be out in the world. Then I'll be back to teaching the medieval foundations of modern cosmology, which is a course that I developed years ago and haven't taught since 3 years ago. So.
I want to ask one more question from this Assembly article, just so that you have the opportunity to sort of set the record straight. There's reference to hiring within skill.
Yep.
And potentially you canceling a hiring process and then it starting back up a few days later. Is that true? And can you talk about that? Well,
I think what came out in that article were some emails I sent. I'm not really open to discussing what's happening in a search that's open, but it's publicly known that because the legislature had not given permanent funding, and that session didn't close till December. So in January, we knew that we were going to need money to cover some of these hires. And because there were some other, I would say, growing pains, I decided it would be better to postpone because there isn't yet student demand. But what I didn't understand is other folks saw it as kind of a mandate to hire right away. There is a law that says there shall be a school and it should hire. And I think I didn't understand that there was a time clock on that. I thought the hiring could be done at a gentler pace. But Lee made money available to go forward, and so we kept going, and I think we will do those hires.
How did that money become available?
So right now, the thing was funded by some one-time funds from the legislature, but the law said the school should come up with money if that's not sufficient. And so the chief financial officer, Nate Knuffman, can redirect funds, that are existing in the university, and that's what happened.
Do we know where those funds came from?
Well, I think, the budget of the university is set in this all funds budget, and then there's always a reserve capacity. Nate would know, but all I needed to know is that if we had the hires, there'd be money to pay for them.
All right. And then my last question for you, you've turned down a lot of media interviews this week.
I have.
Why'd you agree to talk to us now?
Students. I really thought it would be interesting to have an interview on the way out and talk about what I aspire to do. And I've always tried to do things, if a student writes me or sends me an email, I answer it. And, I've turned down things from outside media, but this seemed like an opportunity to talk about the future and what I'm going to do.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you would like to share about the future?
Well, I'd just like to say, for me, my aspiration in life was to be an astrophysicist, not a provost. When I saw an opportunity to do some service in this way that I thought could put some things in place, and it has, that were good for Carolina, I said I can interrupt for some time what I have on my plate and do this service role. It has been the honor and privilege of a lifetime to work with the faculty, students, and staff here in this role, and I feel we've accomplished a lot. I think the additional things I would accomplish weighed against what I want to do in the next years suggested to me it's time for me to go and pursue some passions that I have. But I have no regrets, and it's been just a great experience for me, and I hope it's been a good thing for UNC.
You have a question?
Yeah, two more. One's a bit more, I know, difficult if you're going through, and one I'm curious about your astronomy work.
Yeah.
The first one, though, I have to ask, what you feel about all these resignations in the school, what that was like starting to hear those coming out. And if you don't mind looking at her, just
Sorry. Yeah. So I'm not sure I know what you're asking. You're talking about the School of Civic Life and Leadership.
The original faculty that then chose to no longer be a part of the school.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what happened there is they had some expectation they would be voting members of the faculty with full joint appointments, and as those did not materialize, and as the vision of the dean was being pursued, folks said, "Well, I think I'd rather not participate on those terms." You'd have to ask each one why that occurred.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, on a more fun note, I just went to the planetarium yesterday, and they were saying kind of how big this history of astronomy is at UNC. Neil Armstrong training here. So in a sense of UNC as a research university, what does it mean, I guess, for you to be part of continuing to build positive history and academic advancements at Chapel Hill?
Right. Well, it's interesting you ask about the history of astronomy. Starting in about 2005 or 2007, my research interest turned a little bit more into history as part of the old curriculum, the Making Connections, because I was asked to participate in a cluster course preparation that involved history, English, literature, and science and religion. And so I got really interested in the topic. So my course, The Medieval Foundations of Modern Cosmology, is about the history of thought in the university, essentially focusing on mechanics, astronomy, because astronomy is one of the original 7 liberal arts that were taught from the very beginning, in the 1100s. And so our place in history is not just those astronauts who were trained here. Joseph Caldwell, our first president, had an observatory put up here, went to, I think, France and picked up instrumentation. And that's continued. I came here because we were building the SOAR telescope in Chile, and I produced an instrument with my team. And I still, as provost, went 2 times to Chile to work on that. So we're part of that history of astronomy, and I teach that history of astronomy, and I'm looking forward to making sure we continue to be prominent there with my colleagues, and I have great colleagues in astronomy who do interesting things. And also for me to still pursue a new course maybe in the history of astronomy that moves a little out of the medieval period into the early modern period just after Galileo. There's a lot of interesting things for students to know about how that period of history and what science, how our modern science developed during that period. So I'll be doing that as well.